It is my opinion that education is broken. It has devolved into schooling. Education is interested in learning, schooling is interested in obedience. Think now about what your education has been, K through 12 and college so far. I trust once you think about it that it will also be your opinion that education is broken. What has your education been besides information piled on top of more information? The only questions you have learned to ask as a student are, is it going to be on the test, and did I do it correctly? Both are directed not at what you think, but at what the teacher thinks. But the goal of education is not to think as teacher does. The goal is to think for yourself. To take education as a certain collection of teacher-endorsed information is to rob you of something infinitely more valuable than a college degree, your ability to think freely and for yourself. There will always be information, more now than ever before in history. There is so much information that it all becomes meaningless, but only if you don't know how to think about it. To that end, if you are here only for information, I'm afraid I have some bad news for you. You have paid for something you can get freely at the public library. Even the unremarkable library in Dougherty County in Georgia has over 10,000 books and resources that have been written by experts and scholars in psychology. These 10,000 free books and resources will cover approximately 250 times more material as you will cover throughout a course of a bachelor's degree in psychology. Were you to read all 10,000 books in the library on the topic of psychology, it would hardly scratch the surface on the 16 billion books available worldwide that have been written on the topic. If you're here so that you may be quizzed and tested, then that means that you have memorized information to the satisfaction of about 8 experts in psychology, myself and my colleagues. I ask you, in all seriousness, what are you doing here? What do you hope to obtain? Now, I've asked students this question before, and I suspect that your answer is that you hope to obtain a college degree. The degree has become its own type of social and occupational currency all by itself, no matter what it represents. A degree in psychology, for example, will represent about 0.4% of the information at Dougherty County Library, freely available, I'll remind you, and almost 0.4% of peer-reviewed journal articles that are listed in EBSCOhost, a digital library of scholarly works. They list 11.9 million. Yet the degree remains impressive nonetheless, even though it represents mostly obedience. As I said, that's the definition of schooling. When asked the question of what they're here to obtain, other students respond with, to get an A. These students have replaced the measurement with the thing being measured. This is where it starts to get a little dark, if it hasn't been dark already. Consider with me the 40 or so courses you must take for your psychology degree. This also includes the so-called general education courses. Imagine now that in each course you are expected to memorize a narrow sliver of available information to the satisfaction of a teacher on an end-of-the-term exam. I would argue that at graduation, you will have not only been led astray, but will have also given away or forsaken an invaluable skill, the ability to think for yourself. This is the great tragedy of curriculum-based education. When you memorize only the information in a textbook or lecture notes, you are letting the textbook author and teacher do your thinking on your behalf. You learn, for example, in psychology, about a mysterious substance called mind, which psychologists have learned how to study experimentally. You learn this to be a fact even though thousands of psychologists, myself included, throughout history have rejected the idea of mind as preposterous, and thousands more have never thought to consider it seriously at all. It is upon the backdrop of all of this that I ask you, what are you here for?